Andrew Tate sees a family living in their car. What he does next changes their lives forever. Life can be unpredictable, and sometimes it takes a stranger to change the course of someone's destiny. In today's story, Andrew Tate stumbles upon a family living in their car, struggling to make ends meet. What happens next is nothing short of extraordinary, as his actions turn their lives around forever. Stay with us as we unfold this heartwarming tale of compassion, resilience, and transformation. Andrew Tate was driving his sports car through a quiet suburban area, a rare escape from his typically busy schedule. He was on his way to a business meeting when something unusual caught his attention. Parked at the far corner of a nearly empty grocery store parking lot was an old, beat-up sedan. The car looked like it hadn't been moved in days. At first glance, it might have seemed like just another abandoned vehicle, but as he slowed down to get a better look, Andrew noticed subtle movements inside. Curious, he parked his car and walked over, his sharp eyes scanning the scene. As he approached, he saw what appeared to be a family, a man, a woman, and two young children huddled together inside the car. The windows were fogged up, and the back seat was cluttered with clothes, a few grocery bags, and what looked like blankets. The scene hit Andrew harder than he expected. Here he was, driving a car worth more than most people make in a year, and just a few feet away was a family struggling to stay warm in the middle of a parking lot. Knocking lightly on the driver's side window, he startled the man inside, who rolled it down just enough to talk. The father, cautious but polite, greeted him with a hoarse voice. Andrew introduced himself and started a casual conversation, keeping his tone light and non-threatening. It didn't take long for the father to open up. The family had been living in their car for weeks after the man lost his job. Unable to afford rent, they had been evicted from their apartment and had nowhere else to go. His wife had been trying to keep the kids fed and clean while also looking for work, but with two small children to care for, the challenges were overwhelming. As Andrew listened, he noticed the mother trying to keep the kids entertained with an old deck of cards, their laughter masking the gravity of their situation. The sight was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. Andrew felt a wave of determination rise within him. He wasn't the type to walk away when he could make a difference. He knew this was more than just an unfortunate situation. It was an opportunity to help someone in a profound way. Andrew looked the father in the eye and said, "I can't promise to fix everything overnight, but I can help you get out of this situation. Let's start by finding you and your family a safe place to stay tonight." The father was initially hesitant, wary of accepting help from a stranger, but something about Andrew's confident demeanor and genuine concern eased his doubts. As soon as Andrew got back to his car, he began making calls. Within minutes, he had arranged for a nearby hotel to provide the family with a room for a week. He handed the father the hotel address, along with some cash to cover meals and other immediate needs. "This is just the beginning," Andrew said firmly. "We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." The family's relief was palpable. The mother's eyes filled with tears as she hugged her children, who were excited about the idea of sleeping in a real bed for the first time in weeks. Andrew watched as the father started the car and drove off toward the hotel, a new sense of hope evident in his posture. That night, Andrew couldn't stop thinking about the family. He knew providing temporary shelter wasn't enough. They needed a long-term solution. His mind raced with ideas, each one more ambitious than the last. He decided that the next day would mark the beginning of a full-fledged plan to change their lives forever. True to his word, Andrew wasted no time the following morning. He started by checking in on the family at the hotel. They were still in disbelief over the events of the previous day, but were visibly more relaxed. Over breakfast, Andrew sat down with the parents to discuss their situation in more detail. He learned about their skills, past jobs, and dreams for the future. The father, a former construction worker, had been laid off when his company downsized, and the mother, a talented cook, had been unable to find work because of the kids' needs. Andrew's mind was already formulating a strategy. First, they needed stability. He reached out to a few of his real estate connections and found a modest but comfortable house that was available for rent. He negotiated to pay the first 6 months up front, ensuring the family wouldn't have to worry about immediate housing expenses. The property was fully furnished, complete with everything they would need to start fresh. When Andrew showed the family the house later that day, their reaction was priceless. The kids ran through the rooms, laughing and shouting in excitement, while the parents stood in the living room, overwhelmed with gratitude. The father tried to hold back tears as he said, "I don't even know how to thank you." Andrew smiled and replied, "The best way you can thank me is by building the life you deserve. This is just a stepping stone." But he wasn't done yet. That afternoon, Andrew made another series of calls. He set up meetings for the father with local construction companies and arranged for the mother to interview at a family-owned restaurant known for its supportive work environment. Andrew also connected them with a financial advisor who could help them budget their income and save for the future. By the end of the day, Andrew had put the wheels in motion for the family to not just survive, but thrive. For him, it wasn't about charity. It was about empowerment. Watching the family settle into their new home, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was more than a chance encounter. It was a life-changing moment, for them and for him. Over the next few days, Andrew Tate dedicated himself to ensuring the family's transition into their new life was as seamless as possible. The modest home he had arranged for them was located in a quiet neighborhood, with a small yard where the children could play and enough space inside for them to finally have a sense of privacy and comfort. Andrew had spared no effort in furnishing the house, turning it from a mere shelter into a home. When the family first arrived at the house, they were overwhelmed with emotion. The children were the first to break the silence, racing through the house with wide eyes, laughing and shouting as they explored their new space. Their excitement brought smiles to the faces of their parents, who stood in the doorway, holding each other tightly. The father, a proud and reserved man, seemed lost for words. His wife, with tears streaming down her face, whispered a quiet "thank you" to Andrew, her voice trembling with gratitude. Andrew nodded and said, "This is your fresh start. You don't owe me anything. What matters now is what you do with this opportunity." The house was fully furnished with beds for everyone, a cozy dining table, a stocked kitchen, and even a few toys for the kids. Andrew had thought of everything, from the basics like linens and towels to thoughtful touches like books for the children and a small starter pantry filled with essentials. For the family, who had spent weeks living out of their car, these small details made an enormous difference. The first evening in their new home was magical. The family invited Andrew to stay for dinner, which they prepared together using the groceries he had stocked for them. It was a simple meal, but the atmosphere was filled with warmth and gratitude. The kids giggled as they set the table, the parents exchanged hopeful smiles, and for the first time in a long time, their laughter echoed through a space that felt like their own. As the evening went on, the father opened up to Andrew about how much this gesture meant to him. "I can't tell you how many nights I've lain awake, wondering how I was going to protect my family, how I was going to get us out of this mess. For weeks, I felt like a failure. But now, for the first time, I feel like we can breathe again, like we can start over." Andrew listened carefully, his sharp gaze softened by empathy. "You're not a failure," he said firmly. "You're a fighter. You kept your family together through something most people couldn't handle. This house, this opportunity, it's not just about you. It's about showing your kids that no matter how bad things get, there's always a way forward. Over the next few days, Andrew worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the family had the resources they needed to succeed. He introduced them to local community services that could provide additional support, such as food banks, clothing drives, and employment agencies. He also arranged for the kids to enroll in a nearby school, ensuring they would have access to education and a stable environment where they could make friends and grow. To make the transition smoother, Andrew brought in a few of his friends and contacts who specialized in career counseling and financial planning. He organized a meeting at the house where the family was given personalized advice on how to manage their finances, set realistic goals, and work toward long-term stability. The father, who had experience in construction, was particularly excited about the prospect of returning to work. Andrew had already set up an interview for him with a local contractor who was looking for skilled workers. For the mother, Andrew had taken a slightly different approach. Knowing she was a talented cook, he arranged for her to visit a small, family-owned restaurant that prided itself on its welcoming atmosphere and supportive team. The owner, a friend of Andrew's, was more than happy to give her a chance. "She's got the passion," Andrew told him. "She just needs someone to believe in her." Andrew's focus wasn't just on giving the family temporary relief. It was on creating a foundation for lasting success. He wanted them to have the tools, knowledge, and confidence to take charge of their own lives. Every step of the process was carefully planned to empower them, not just provide for them. One day, while visiting the family to check on their progress, Andrew found the children playing in the yard. The father was in the kitchen, proudly showing off a stack of resumes he had sent out, while the mother was preparing lunch, using some of the fresh produce Andrew had brought over. The atmosphere was completely different from the one he had encountered in the parking lot just days earlier. The house was filled with light, laughter, and a sense of hope that had been missing for far too long. As he sat down to lunch with the family, Andrew reflected on how far they had come in such a short time. The transformation was remarkable, but he knew this was just the beginning. For the family, the journey toward stability and success was just starting, and Andrew was determined to see it through. By the time he left that afternoon, Andrew felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had given the family a chance, but it was their resilience and determination that would ultimately carry them forward. Watching them settle into their new home, he couldn't help but feel that this wasn't just a random act of kindness. It was a reminder of what people can achieve when someone believes in them and gives them the opportunity to rise above their circumstances. In the weeks that followed, Andrew Tate continued to invest time, energy, and resources into helping the family find not just stability, but true independence. He understood that while the house provided them with a safe and comfortable environment, the key to long-term success lay in financial empowerment and sustainable income. Andrew's goal was clear: to help them transition from surviving to thriving. The first step was ensuring the father had steady work. Andrew followed up with the local contractor he had reached out to, who was eager to meet with the father after hearing about his construction skills. On the day of the interview, Andrew personally drove the father to the site, giving him a pep talk along the way. "This is your chance to show what you're made of," Andrew said confidently. "You've been through tough times, but that's what makes you stronger. Let them see the man who's ready to rebuild not just walls, but a whole life." The interview went exceptionally well. The contractor was impressed by the father's experience and his determination to work hard. By the end of the meeting, the father was offered a full-time position with competitive pay and opportunities for growth. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he called Andrew immediately to share the good news. "This job means everything to me," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "I can finally provide for my family again." Andrew congratulated him, but also reminded him of the importance of planning for the future. "This is just the beginning," he said. "You're building a foundation now, but you need to think long-term. Save, invest, and always keep learning." Meanwhile, Andrew was working closely with the mother to help her secure a job as well. The small restaurant he had contacted was a cozy, family-run establishment that prided itself on fostering a supportive work environment. The mother, nervous but excited, attended her interview armed with encouragement from Andrew and the hope of creating a better future for her children. Her passion for cooking and her eagerness to learn impressed the restaurant's owner, who offered her a part-time position with the potential for full-time hours as she gained experience. When Andrew visited the family later that week, the mood in the house was electric. Both parents were now employed, and the children were settling into their new school with ease. The family's days were filled with purpose and activity, and their evenings were spent together, sharing stories about their day and planning for the future. Andrew could see the transformation in their confidence and sense of self-worth. But he knew there was still work to be done. One afternoon, Andrew sat down with the parents to discuss financial planning. Using his own experiences as a guide, he introduced them to the basics of budgeting, saving, and investing. He brought in a financial advisor who walked them through creating a monthly budget, tracking expenses, and setting achievable goals. The advisor also helped them open a savings account and explained the importance of building an emergency fund. Andrew emphasized the value of self-reliance. "It's not about how much you make," he explained. "It's about how you use what you have. You've been given a second chance, and now it's up to you to make the most of it." The parents were eager to learn, taking notes and asking questions. They even began teaching their children simple financial concepts, like saving a portion of their allowance and understanding the value of money. Andrew was proud to see the family embracing these lessons, knowing they would serve them well in the years to come. Months passed, and the family's progress was nothing short of remarkable. The father had been promoted to a supervisory role at the construction company, thanks to his dedication and hard work. The mother had become a beloved member of the restaurant's team, her talent in the kitchen earning her praise from both co-workers and customers. Together, they were earning enough to cover their expenses, save for the future, and even treat their children to small luxuries like new clothes and extracurricular activities. One day, Andrew visited the family unannounced. He found the kids playing in the yard, their laughter echoing through the neighborhood. Inside, the parents were preparing a meal, their faces radiating joy and contentment. The house was filled with warmth, love, and a sense of stability that had once seemed like an impossible dream. The father greeted Andrew with a firm handshake and a grateful smile. "You changed our lives," he said. "I don't know where we'd be if you hadn't stopped that day in the parking lot." Andrew shook his head. "You changed your own lives. I just gave you a nudge in the right direction. Everything you've achieved, you did that. Remember that." As they sat down to dinner, the family shared stories about their journey, reflecting on how far they had come. Andrew listened quietly, feeling a profound sense of satisfaction. This was more than just a good deed. It was a testament to the power of resilience, determination, and the impact of one person believing in another. Before leaving, Andrew offered one final piece of advice. "Never stop striving for more," he said. "You've built a strong foundation, but life will keep throwing challenges your way. Face them head on, and remember, you're stronger than you think." As he walked away from the house, Andrew felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The family's journey had been transformative, not just for them, but for him as well. It was a reminder of the power of compassion, the importance of taking action, and the incredible things that can happen when people are given the chance to rise above their circumstances. This wasn't just a story of survival. It was a story of hope, growth, and the boundless potential of the human spirit.